forward.
I'm going to abuse you over this. Is this what you?
I got 1 minute to go here. And I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lake Lorraine Planning Commission, Monday, April 3rd, 2020 at 7:30 at the Village Council Chambers. First thing I'd like to do is, before we even start, I'd like to welcome George Dandelides as a new member of the Planning Commission. Welcome. Okay, roll call, please. Well, we got to do Pledge of Allegiance first. Okay. Roll call, please.
McCleary,
Present.
Narsch,
Here.
Smith is
Here.
Sable. Mr. Sable is absent. Dunn,
Here.
Lamb,
Here.
Laurent,
Here.
Dandelides,
Here.
Zenyuk is excused.
And so was Mr. Sable.
Oh, Mr. Sable is
Yeah,
also
he
excused.
emailed me.
Okay, we have a quorum. First thing we need is the approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission regular draft meeting notes for March 6, 2023. Is there your motion?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion on that?
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
We have a motion to approve the agenda, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comment on non-agenda items. I'd like to make sure that we stay to 3 minutes if we have anybody tonight, and make sure that it's things to do with the Planning Commission. Do we have anybody that would like to speak tonight? Seeing none and hearing none, as Jerry says, we'll move on. Old business. Old business, 494 South Broadway Site Plan Review. We're going to you, Gage.
Thank you, Chair. So this revised site plan at 494 Broadway for Cloud Retail is largely in compliance with our zoning ordinance. We really do applaud the applicant for making those diligent changes, especially to the facade of the building as a gateway structure into the village. This is going to look really nice, and we're really excited about that. We do maintain our recommendation that parking be reduced to better to benefit the environment and just the overall appearance and aesthetics of the site. But it should be noted that that does not preclude our recommendation of approval. We would just strongly recommend some reduction in the parking. I know it was brought up earlier about cross-access to the north to Mystic Cove. Again, just to reiterate our point previously, that we did not find that this cross-access was necessary or even really beneficial, just given how tight the site is and its proximity to obviously residential, a residential development. We did not find that this was suitable for the project. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
So the only real thing we have in question is parking.
Yes, and you are more than welcome to allow for the additional parking. I just want that stated for the record.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
I think you also had still a
Mr. Lamb?
question with some.
Sorry, Mr. Dunn, go ahead.
I think you also still had some questions about the steep grades coming in, didn't you?
Sure, yeah, and for the rain gardens, and the landscaping and also the approaches into the driveway, it's my understanding that the applicant has submitted their site plans to MDOT. They did get conceptual approval, in order to do that submission. So right now, it's currently under review by MDOT, and the road commission still has to approve this plan as well. We don't find issue with that. We think we can handle that administratively. It's not going to change the site in a material way.
Mr. Lamb, you had your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to go a little dad-like on you, Hunter. The duty of the planning commission is
Yes.
to make the decisions about whether or not ordinances are appropriate, or whether waiving of requirements like cross-access easements. They're not for the planner to decide if they're trivial or frivolous. Your recommendations may be to waive a requirement or not. It's not your decision. And so the verbiage you used, I don't care for.
My apologies.
I don't care for it. One of the requirements we asked in the last plan was that we have plans suitable to show us scaled relationship between this site and the adjoining site. Okay, I'm sitting here trying to fold this microscopic plan and go like this to determine the effects of the one property or the other. That's not acceptable. Now, I know the planning commission relies on your recommendations and the recommendations of the engineer for the site plan approval, but this plan has the stuff that's gonna be torn down on it. And this plan, just fortunately, the Constellation Bay people are here tonight, so I have their plan. And are they the same scale?
No.
Oh, so the same scale, so I can't even line them up to determine whether or not I'm gonna vote for approval. So I'm gonna have to vote no on their site plan approval because you haven't given me enough information to make a proper judgment, which I said at the last meeting. Whether or not they met all the requirements or not, I cannot see the effect on the neighboring properties from this plan or the future development, interrelationship of the future development plan. And so, I think that was your company's responsibility to guide the submittal process, whether the commission, they can do as they see fit. But I'm gonna have to vote no because this was my one single thing that I asked for, was that I could see the adjoining sites, proposed developments, they're being built concurrently. I don't know who missed this. So, unfortunately, I understand the principal architect wasn't here last time. So that being said, I can't address my questions on that issue, so I can't make a determination.
I understand. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, I apologize for any omission in this submission. I would like to personally work with the applicant and you, Mr. Lamb, possibly administratively, to see the full scope of the impact on Mystic Cove to the north, and work with the applicant to submit something to be approved administratively.
I can't be involved in that process. I'm on the planning commission. We sit here and act as a body together.
Yeah,
So
understood.
I'm very unfortunate for me that I can't make a proper review of the plan because I can't see how it even is involved with any of the new neighbors. And that's very important.
I agree.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, maybe I'm missing something here, but at the last meeting, I thought we had discussed the cross-access easement between this property and Mystic Cove, and I thought the consensus of the commission was that it wasn't necessary due to the use of this property. And I specifically remember the discussion by McKenna with the commission that that people from Mystic Cove could access this facility by sidewalk. I wasn't necessarily in agreement with not allowing for the cross-access easement. I believe it's necessary, but in all fairness to McKenna, I do have to say that I remember that discussion, and I thought it was the consensus of the commission at that time that we probably would not be considering a cross-access easement between these two properties. I could be wrong.
No, I do remember that conversation, and I think Mr. Lamb is just trying to get all the plans together so he can take one good look at the plans and that they make sense to him, which also makes sense to me.
Yeah, that was what my statement was. The cross-access easement was just to be discussed. I didn't have a definitive, that's not what I'm pushing for. I'm pushing for I don't have enough information
Right.
to review the interactions of the site with the adjoining site.
I think that McKenna said that this project, that they gave their approval. The only thing that I disagree with on this project is the amount of parking that they're asking for at 15. I think the parking should be, I think it was 36 or 34.
Per ordinance requirement?
36.
36, the
Right now.
request.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would like to suggest that when we make a motion to approve this, that we put that in there.
Yes, I would agree.
Respectfully, I'm going to push back.
Okay?
I think 36 parking spaces is appropriate for these types of establishments. The amount of car traffic, employee traffic, I just think ample parking for these types of operations becomes a benefit to the village in this instance.
To have 36.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's,
Yeah, you're agreeing.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you. I
Oh,
apologize.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah, push back, I go, well, you're not saying push back words. Okay. Do we want to have a quick discussion on parking? Mr. Narch?
I was just going to opine the same way. I know my esteemed manager, and I understand his thought process to have more green in this space, but I like the parking. I've grown up in the environment in our downtown where parking is such a premium that we finally have a place that has it. So, I mean, I like it. I kind of want to keep it as well. I think it's appropriate. The other thing is, not every business that starts out what it is ends up what it is, right? 10 years from now, this could be a disco bar because they're going to be back with the big balls swinging. You watch, and big bottom bells. Watch, 10 years from now. You heard it here first. So it could be.
You're lucky we're all that age to understand
I'm
that.
laying it down, man. But it could be something different, and having additional and adequate parking is a benefit. And I think it's laid out nicely and appropriately, and I think there's enough green space going along with it. So I'm in favor of the parking as proposed. That's it.
Mr. Dunn?
Yeah, I am also in favor, and I don't know if I said it at the last meeting, but before the last meeting, when we got these plans, I drove through the establishment across the street, the Live, and counted up the cars, and there were 30-plus cars in that parking lot at that time. So I could see the parking being utilized, and if they couldn't park there, there's really nowhere else to park in that vicinity. I mean, they'd either have to run across M24 or something, or park in the apartments, which I'm sure they don't want that. So I would recommend sticking with the larger number.
Okay. Any other? Yes.
So I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm probably going to ask a stupid question, being new. But I went back and looked at the plan submission number 2, just to try and get my head around, what some of the history had been.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that, and when I read through McKenna's report here, they underlined those things which still needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
So I looked back at number 2, and I compared that to number 3. There were 12 items that were underlined as still needing to be addressed a month ago in number 2. When I compare that to number 3, 3 of those things have been addressed. 9 of them remain from the previous submission. So my question is that normal, and would that be expected, or should we expect in successive site plan submissions, that those things are taken care of? Or is there more, I guess, is there more background or more description needed to take care of those or to get those out of the underlying sections?
Usually when we get that report, and we have those kind of things, and McKenna says we can work through them, they will end up working through those pieces with them. If there's an issue with those pieces that they can't figure out, then they would end up bringing it to us.
So if we were to approve that with those,
But this, the condition,
those
it's a
those
condition.
conditions still, open, what's the feedback process? How do we know that we did the right thing?
And McKenna will bring it back to us and share it with us. Does that help or no?
It does. Like I said, I'm new, so I'm not sure what
These
normal is.
processes go back and forth a bunch of times, and until we finally get to where we need to be. This will come up in front of us again. This is not done. This gives them an opportunity to start.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help? Okay. Mr. Lamb?
Everybody get a chance to talk once?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I wanted to clarify two things. One is I'm totally in favor of as much parking as possible, any site in the village. Landscape maintenance is a weak point in this village, and so I'd rather have parking. Get back to the issue with the having not adequate off-site information about the relationship of the two properties. Let me ask a couple of questions. Does the Mystic Cove site directly abut the Broadway site?
Yes, to the north.
They share, basically the common line would be the west line and the north line are the two common lines that we share with them. I'm riding with landscaping and engineering.
You guys want to come up and be ready? I think Mr. Lamb has a few questions for you.
And to answer part of your question, we've tried, honestly, I have tried to contact the other civil engineers and try to get a copy of it, just for a shade, just to kind of show the difference between us and them, and I have yet to get a response. Typically, I like doing it myself.
They are right here next to you tonight.
Okay. Is that you guys?
You did your legal description based off of our site plan.
Okay.
So you're coordinating, you can't coordinate. And
Okay.
my questions, I have some concerns because I'm ultimately concerned about the citizens of the village primarily, and then business taxpayers I'm concerned about too. But when the new comes in to affect the old, I have to be concerned for those people. Because I consider that my duty. So there's a fellow that lives in this large house here. That's probably one of the single biggest taxpayers in the village. And he has a driveway that goes through Mystic Cove. And then there's some, interesting looking ways to get out of his property towards your site. And I couldn't really determine the relationship of the two sites in order to make sure I adequately address, those concerns. I don't want to bring that up because I don't like to target any single residence as being a focus for, So I can't see that part of the site plan, and so it just left me with some concern.
I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. Mr. Lamb, I believe you're confusing Constellation Bay and Mr. Reard's house with Mystic Cove.
Okay, so.
It's the wrong site.
Wrong site. Okay,
Yes.
that's why they don't line up even at all.
Correct.
Got it?
Okay.
I adequately explained my confusion and why I wanted off-site plan information.
All right.
Because I don't know.
I don't know who you were talking about. The big white house in the middle?
Yeah.
May I? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
My name's John Vitale. I'm with Stuckey and Vitale Architects. I'm the principal architect involved in the Broadway. So I do have a drawing that answers your question, if that
May I
helps.
fill up the loop here? Do you want to bring it up here? Or? Sure. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is all I want. Okay, you're approved. So the road runs from Heights through the apartment complex all the way. That's fine. That's beautiful. I can park at the live site and then walk down the road to the restaurant. I'm great. So I'm sorry, so please don't give me the problem.
I don't like to be called, but I'm pretty sure.
Yes. So in this case, yes, I agree, and then the road is one way, it goes in this direction, correct? So that any cross-access use could be done on the secondary street away from M24. The traffic flow could go this way
Right.
and out?
Yep.
Okay, what about the people going this way? Don't think that'd be that much. They have to go around?
Can't, that's a one-way.
And then Mr. Young failed in his attempt to get that made into a two-way street.
Apparently, but I know nothing about that.
That was last year.
Okay.
Okay, this'll do it. Thank you. Coming into this is the kind of information I think we should always have when we have developments. The adjoining property, here's our new developments, I can see everything, the roads, okay, I was totally confused.
Oh, I understand.
And, you know, see, this is what had confused me last time, see this area here? I would love for that to be gone and to drive out of that parking lot into here, so I want to explain that to you. Can I just ask for you more, please? So, because of the one-way traffic situation on Heights, you see this section of the pavement where they're parking? It's a similar situation to what we had on the site today with McDonald's and Lives. And I just want to be sure that we shouldn't connect it because of the one-way traffic system and people, all these people from the apartments and go this way, kind of this parking lot, in order to access that business or something like that. That's the purpose of the cross-access on the main highway. Whether or not they connect them.
What's your concern, Mike?
So, and the last, I remember, now I remember this.
And this is an exit, go north or south, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, yes. So it was just a matter of the traffic flow, so these roads go this direction, this road goes in and out this way. This volume, we wonder how much traffic is gonna end up trying to circulate in the opposite direction or whatnot. I just didn't know if it would be prudent to provide for anything to.
Yeah, see,
Our
they
ordinance
have,
requires that.
right, but because this is a one-way, it changes the game. They can come here, make their turn and.
Yeah, if they,
Yeah.
but I just.
Yeah, and that'll be the natural course.
So if I could, go to the restaurant, I could park here and go to the restaurant.
Well, unless you got a sign that says
No, that's what cross-access is for. It's like,
these, right.
So this plan is perfect
Yeah.
for the application of the cross-access easement, okay? However, I may not have the support to put it, make you follow the ordinance, so, yeah. I think the site's perfectly suited for a cross-access easement, yeah. What? It's okay, that's my comments. Thank you very much for putting up with all that, but we didn't have the plans, I want to make sure.
That was good. That was good. Okay. We're on 494 South Broadway. I'm looking for a motion. Do we have a motion? It's been approved by McKenna. We've stated in the motion that we want to have 36 parking spots, and then we can move on with this.
I'd like to move to approve the plans as presented.
Okay? We have a motion.
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Did the mover state about the parking?
Yes.
You made the motion. Could you state it for me?
I'd like to move to approve the plans as shown with the 36 parking spots.
Okay, and
Would you be
second.
interested in amending your motion to include, since we have so many extra parking, to include the cross-access easement to provide better traffic flow within the community? I doubt it would have any negative effect on either project.
I could add and see if it goes through the rest of the board. Is that, would we have an opportunity to make another motion?
I'd second that then.
The motion has been seconded.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
make a
need-
So-
supporting motion, okay.
It's
then-
been supported.
Then I'll make a supplementary motion to amend his motion.
You have to wait until his,
All right, we have a
if
mo,
you,
If I can make a second motion underneath his motion, it must be approved before the primary motion.
I don't know, can you?
I believe I can. It's the same, that's why we always short circuit that process with the supplementary.
Then they have to vote on that.
I think we have a motion, we have a second, we should vote on it. And if there's a motion Mr. Lamb would like to bring back.
If Mr. Lamb wants to make a motion to amend Mr. Smith's motion, he can do that, and then he would require a second to the amendment to the motion. Then if you had a second to the amendment of the motion, then you would vote on the amendment first, and then you would go back and vote on Mr. Smith's motion with that amendment. Clear as mud?
As she said.
Good, yeah.
I'm on top.
So you've made your motion,
I move to amend the motion.
an amended motion, you're waiting for support.
Right, to add the four, part two, let the cross access easement to connect to the adjoining development.
Can you hear her?
Do we have a second? Doesn't sound like we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second.
Okay. And now vote on the amendment.
Do we want to discuss it at all since we didn't discuss the cross access?
Yes, go ahead, Michael.
I don't see any negative impact on either project to have a cross access easement. I see a lot of positives based on my experiences with the sites across the street, with the McDonald's parking lot interaction, and then the McDonald's parking lot interaction with the adjoining gas station. The reason they precluded having the cross-access easement on the live site with the McDonald's site was because there was a residential neighborhood that had entrance directly abutting the gas station. The complaint was that the residential neighbors were suffering undue traffic from commercial vehicles crossing behind CVS. You guys are all familiar with the cross-access road all behind CVS. And it's kind of confused there. So on this particular site, I don't think it's a problem. And then, so the thing that makes me worry about the situation is the one-way street on Heights that creates an intrinsic traffic conflict with that parking lot. And I just think it would make for the traffic. I think the people that made all these errant turns into the live facility or off of Heights Drive that decided to cut through the parking lot, they would have a remedy out. But, so that's my opinion.
Okay,
I know I may be out of turn, I'm sorry to interrupt, but as the owner of the adjacent, or soon-to-be owner of the adjacent parcel, when our site plan was submitted and approved, we were not required to have cross-access to the south. Furthermore, I firmly disagree with health, safety, and welfare of that being in place. It is a highly trafficked commercial use, cross-accessing into a residential use. It's not very safe. I disagree.
I'd cut through all the time to get to my park in my apartment complex, but that's okay.
That's great, but I'm just,
It's gonna be very crowded, so it's okay.
I think furthermore, though, even if the applicant was required to have a cross-access easement, we wouldn't go into that agreement. Thank you.
should we do a roll call on that?
We could do a hands up, because I don't think it's gonna pass this time, so.
What would you like?
Let's
Mr.
do a
Chair?
roll call, please.
Okay. McClary,
No.
Dandelides,
So this is on the second, the moment.
This is the cross-section.
The amended.
The
motion,
amendment.
right?
Yes.
So I vote yes.
Smith,
Is there an opportunity to understand the impact to both locations with the cross-access?
we're at the point of
We're
voting.
at voting at this point.
Discussion's over.
The neighbor said he wasn't going to cooperate, he'd already been approved, so I think that was the death sentence to my motion. So you guys don't have to feel stressed. They've already been approved and they won't cooperate, we can't tell them to, so it's just an exercise in plan review that I'm
Okay,
doing on someone else.
keep going?
No.
Smith, Loriant,
No.
Dunn,
No.
Narsch,
No.
Lamb.
No.
Now you have.
All right, let's go back to the original motion.
I'm so sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just for point of clarification on the main motion, is the motion to include the conditions that were outlined in McKenna's
Yes.
recommendation?
Yes.
I just want to be clear, because I didn't hear that in the motion.
You're right,
but,
you did.
With the conditions outlined in both the engineers and the planners report.
Follow up with those.
Okay.
Okay, let's do a roll call just to be safe.
Yes. Lamb,
Yes.
Narsch,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Danielides,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McClary,
Yes.
Lorant.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, looks like the motion passes for 494 South Broadway. New business.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're looking at Constellation Bay site plan amendment review. Do you guys want to share that with us at all? Or how do you want that to work?
Yeah, we put the boards up if you want to do that really quick.
Hey, gentlemen.
So we got easels there. Okay.
Take care.
For the record, Dominic Mosheri Companies, 3005 University Drive. Gage is going to go through his presentation, but I just want to preface it. As I announced in early January, the first meeting of the year, we were going to save the Queen Anne structure, the original structure, and move it about 200 feet to the north. Doing a nice little gift to the community. We think it's the right thing to do, and we're very excited about it. I think the review speaks for itself, but this top poster here is what the streetscape will look like if you're looking down Atwater. So it's bookended with the rebuilt Dr. Mestre Matteo, it's called the Foursquare or Italian 8, and then to the north you'll have the Queen Anne structure as well. The building directly to the left of the Queen Anne originally was an 8-unit building. It is now 7 residences to make up for the Queen Anne being saved. So it's the same amount of units, just one off to add, rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. So we're very excited about the plan. I'll let Gage do his thing. I'm open to questions, obviously, after he's done, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Hey,
Thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Mosheri summed up his project pretty well. To do so even further, on page 2, there's an executive summary detailing the changes within the plan. This is an amended site plan. We see smaller setbacks, but these are still in compliance with the zoning ordinance. We see, excuse me, a modified landscaping plan, but this is still in compliance with the ordinance. Otherwise, there is very little change. Overall, I do want to mention the cross-access agreement. There is one submitted, and it's under review by our attorney for access to the north. And I believe that is, oh, I'm sorry. The one recommendation we did have regarding the building facade, we'd like to see greater masonry detail, especially on buildings 1 and 2, which are closer to the public right-of-way. We'd like to see as much masonry and architectural detail as we can there, and further extending that to the other buildings as well, excluding buildings 7 and 8, which have their own designs. But we'd just like to see the incorporation of greater masonry facade.
I just want to point out that that note was presented during the original site plan approval, and it was approved as is presented, just so everyone's clear.
okay.
But otherwise, we do recommend approval of this amended site plan.
Comments on the Constellation Bay site, gentlemen?
I move to approve the plan as submitted.
I second.
We have a motion to approve, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Really nice job doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is the Planning Commission 2022 Annual Planning Report and the 2023 Work Plan Report.
Thank you, gentlemen. 2022, I wasn't really here for that year, but Laura was, Simon was, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for your service. I've already learned a lot from you so far, and I look forward to working with you more in 2023. As far as meetings go, you all met 11 times, so you well and above the state requirement. If you flip to page 2, you can see various development reviews, variance reviews, and zoning ordinance amendments that have passed through this commission or through our planning and zoning department. We shepherd a lot of these reviews through, and of course the larger ones you do get your eyes and hands on as well. So we look forward to doing a little bit more of that, a lot more of that in 2023. Speaking of which, just flipping to page 3 for the 2023 work plan. This is the most exciting bit. We want to make sure that we're looking ahead, moving forward. The Redevelopment Ready Communities certification provides us with a lot of recommendation for zoning ordinance text amendments to make it a more user-friendly document, to bring it up to date with modern and contemporary planning practices, focusing on sustainability, equity, accessibility, and inclusiveness, and as well as just cleaning up the document to avoid any contradictory statements and any impracticalities that could cause undue burden on developers and business owners and residents. So this could also include an update to your sign ordinance. That is a separate code from the zoning ordinance, but we'd like to get our hands on that as well. We would also recommend the Planning Commission work on a mobility plan for the village. This is just a way to enhance everyday life. Things are constantly changing here in the village, and we want to make sure that people can get around from one place to another via many modes of transportation, not just vehicles, but bikes, walking, rolling on wheelchairs. We want to make sure it's accessible for everyone. You have a great community here, and we just want to make sure that everyone can get to where they need to go. And then, of course, for RRC, they do recommend that, or they require, that the village provide progress on master plan implementation. So the village does have a master plan, but it does not have a implementation plan, or an action plan, sometimes it's called, which is just an itemized list of tasks that can be completed over the next, over the life of the plan. We'd like to take a look at the plan, potentially develop that action plan for you just from the current master plan as it stands, and then we can provide a time frame, prioritization, and the status of those discrete items, working with you all to kind of figure out what needs to be prioritized or completed in the next 1 to 5 years. So that is what we recommend.
I have a question for you as to creating the priority punch list for the master plan. Is that something that you recommend public input on that priority, or was that not provided in the charrette styles that, I know we did an online version in our last master plan review, and we had a lot of public input that way, but did we not, and I know Mr. McCleary wasn't here, but didn't we have a prioritization in that? And if not, should that be included in a public input, and then develop a way to do it? I like the online. I think we got more input online than we did having the charrette style in the building and put the sticky note on the, and those worked, but everybody's so busy. We seem to do well on an online, but anyway, might be nice to have public input.
Did you want to add that into this, Jerry?
I would like to look at public input if we didn't already. in the prioritization, because I think that's really important to know what our community thinks is the most important, the second most important.
Okay.
And the
Mr.
third.
Lamb?
I agree with Jerry in the fact that we need public input. Since Jerry wasn't, I don't think, on the planning commission last time, and Darwin wasn't here, we had a abysmal, I think is the word, turnout for the user inputs. I mean, not user, for the citizen inputs. Almost no one responded. Laura pointed that out at meeting after meeting. Almost no one responded to the master plan survey and study. No one.
I think the online, we can do it in a way,
But nobody, it was online.
And was it?
Oh, yes, it was
Okay.
all online, and nobody responded to anything, and they sent out numerous requests. So I like the idea that you recommended of, getting a prioritized plan of items that we could address. The misdirection in the village, like with mobility studies and future planning studies, we don't have money to replace the sidewalks, let alone study how we're going to reconfigure the sidewalks or purchase properties or make changes to the community to accomplish these wonderful things. We're a tiny little village with no money. So I think a priority addressed list, like we've been working on with the CIP, would be a good direction to keep our planners headed in, instead of having them take on conceptual approaches for things that will never happen in the village.
Well, I do want to counter one thing. We do have the money, and we do have the ability to fix our sidewalks. We're not a minute port in Here's a Who village.
Where's the money coming from again, Jerry?
We are going to be able to do that, but I do not want the public to think, therefore, because we're never going to be able to fix our sidewalks and we're going to never be able to fix our roads, let's just give up and not participate. We will come together. We understand what our needs are. I've never found a city yet that fixed all of their issues overnight. Last I checked, Ann Arbor and Birmingham are rather fluid income communities, but yet they have issues.
Same issue.
They all do. Everybody does. So we take them one at a time, head on. We're going to prioritize. We're going to come up with 5 and maybe 10-year infrastructure plans, as we should. But I just want the community to know that we want their input, because we want to look at what is the most important thing to them, and then we're going to redirect and find the funds we need to get that done. And that's what we do, right? That's what we do. We did it in 1978, we did it in 88, we did it in 98.
So the question on hand was the report with the mobility planning. So do you feel that should we budget some money for the planners to continue, working on the master plan? Should we recommend that the planners engage in an expensive study, or should we request that they do the minimum necessary, that we meet the state requirements we already have a master plan to fulfill the requirements, so we aren't penalized?
My motion is kind of in the form of
Do we need a motion?
approval or acceptance, if we're doing this as receive and file, but I would like to see how we're going to address that priority list.
Mr. Chairman, what I would like to see happen first is to work on the priorities for the master plan, and as part of that project, pulling together all of our plans and how they fit into the master plan. Our Parks and Recreation master plan, our asset management plans for water, wastewater, the PASER ratings for our street system, and because we're starting to look at that and how we come up with a comprehensive plan for street improvements and sidewalk improvements. These are some discussions that the Village Council is going to be having over the next couple months as part of the capital improvement plan process. But looking at that first and then determining whether or not there are gaps in those plans that require us to look more closely at mobility issues. Looking at whether or not by mobility, are you talking about the complete streets concept and trying to incorporate in our street design and sidewalk designs those mobility issues? I think first working on the master plan priorities and then working out from there may be good. And pulling in all of the plans that we've already worked on, all of our studies, and incorporating them and aligning them with the overall master plan priorities may be the first step.
That sounds like a cool motion.
Is that your motion?
That would be my motion.
So I move to receive and file the report like the manager recommended.
I think we have a motion down.
Did you make a motion, Darrell?
I would move that we recommend to the village council that the village planners work with the planning commission on establishing prioritization of a work plan in accordance with the master plan and our other plans, and recommend that the council consider allocating funds for that purpose.
Should we add a public permitting, or is that a given?
It would be a part of it.
Okay. I'll support that.
Always support citizen engagement in everything that we do, so.
All right, we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Thank you. Next one we have is McKenna Planning Zoning Monthly Report.
Thank you, Chair. This one is maybe less interesting, but it's our day-to-day work. This is kind of what I do on Tuesdays when I'm in. I'm the Tuesday guy. So I review permits. I shepherd projects through the review process. You can see we've issued quite a few permits this year already. And of course, we just want to make sure that we can highlight and get this report to you monthly. I know we kind of lagged here in the beginning of 23, but we'd like to get this report to you monthly so you can see what we're up to. And just remind you that you can visit me on Tuesdays in the office if you'd like. Our emails are right there, Laura, mine, Vidya, if you remember her, and Alicia. She helps remotely. If you go on to page 2, you can kind of just get some details on those permits. You can get details on projects. On page 3, you can see, I'll skip over the permits. I'll go to the project detail on page 3, just to show you how it kind of works here. You can see that you've got all the projects that you've been looking at in the past couple of months, and you may even see some new ones, including PC 23003 for Orion Villas. It's another multifamily residential site plan that is just coming through our office right now, so we're really excited to get that reviewed and in front of you all to get your eyes on. But Starboard, another Mosheri development, is coming forward pretty soon. We're working on ironing out some zoning details with them, but we're really excited about that as well. And then we've got project updates for some of the older projects as well. Some upcoming initiatives within the Planning and Zoning Department include fee schedule revisions. We're aiming to kind of align that with the budget process, so we're working with Darwin pretty closely on that. We'd like to have some updated applications that have that fee schedule on there, so it's really easy for developers to kind of plan and just financially plan for their projects. And something that Darwin and I are really excited about is some coordination with the township regarding the building department and permitting process. We had some really good discussions with the township about sharing access to their BSNA building department programming and kind of streamlining the process and hopefully relieving some headaches on all sides here, just making sure that the village is a good place to do business. So really excited about the changes to come, both short-term and long-term. So thank you very much.
Darwin, I feel you have something to say here.
Oh my gosh, you are good. I'm impressed. So I did want to note one thing on the report. You'll see 146 Bellevue, and they have applied for a permit for a retaining wall. And I just want the Planning Commission to know that my position on making permanent improvements within public rights-of-way is that I would normally deny those requests for permits. unless there is some public health or safety or welfare issue involved that would make me consider otherwise, in which case I would take it to the village council for their approval to use any rights-of-way or public property. So Gage and I are working together on 146 Bellevue because it's been submitted to me and I've expressed my concerns to him about that retaining wall. So I just want to make sure the Planning Commission is also aware of what my position is on that. Normally, we should not be allowing private improvements within our road rights-of-way or on public property.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question.
I don't have anything else. Mr.
Nothing else?
I have a question for
Mr.
Mr. McCleary. A while back, and not that this is what I'm about to say, but a while back, we had the issue of people improving public right-of-way and road right-of-ways. And I can almost remember a couple of the houses where it started, and the conversation was, as long as you understand that anybody can park there, you don't own that, right? If they improve the road right-of-way between, so those happen, and we've got a form for that. You're not talking about that, correct? I mean, you'll have people that will pave their driveway, then they pave the approach and the apron, which is in the road right-of-way.
Driveway approaches have to connect with the paved roadway, even if the driveway approach is coming into the public right-of-way. It has to connect to the paved right-of-way. That's not an issue, because I think that may be covered under some of our engineering design guidelines and what have you. What I'm talking about is anything that would obstruct the road right-of-way or would be decorative in nature, that would
Alter the use.
alter the use or obstruct our ability to access our underground utilities, our water and sewer, because we incur additional costs. I have to tear those improvements out if we have to do a water main repair or sewer repair. And then we're not responsible for replacing those anyway. But it's better to tell people up front, no, you can't build within the road right-of-way, than it is later to tell them we're tearing it out after you've already spent the money. And by the way, we're not replacing it. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Darwin, I concur 100% with you. And we have some people here that have lived through the Bridge Street fiasco. Okay, horrible fiasco. Was it 5 years or 7 years? 8. Then we have the ongoing Clare Street issues. That's been going on for at least 3 or 4 years. And those are the most recent that I've been involved with in my 2.5 years. So it's been 2 major deals. And I've never been an advocate of let the citizens do wrong and then have a licensing agreement with the village attorney later. Okay, this is not the right way to run a community of any kind. So I wanted to move from that back to Hunter's report. So I like the idea of if we're going to use the township as a village building official system, integrating into their computers and stuff would be fine. I use BSNA. I'm a residential builder, and I use that system regularly, and it's convenient and organized. The one thing that since Hunter's the lead man for review, he's missed the years of, the village does not have a policy, even though we do have resolutions at the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and in our ordinances that require, stake surveys, engineering site plans for modifications to property. So in the past, all these, in addition to the use of the right-of-way and permitting uses in the right-of-way things, we haven't had any adequate engineering site plan reviews for residential properties. And the complaint has been, oh, it's such a burden to the homeowners having to pay for a $1,000 survey or having to pay for a site plan. Well, the homes are hitting $1 million now. The site coverage is 100%. The roads are flooded because of inadequate drainage, because the individual site plans, as they're each overlooked and not reviewed by an appropriate engineering firm, it's the cumulative effect, not the individual effect or the finger pointing blame to an individual. It's the cumulative effect in the village. So these, 20, 30 years of policies with not having full-time supportive, which we can't afford, engineering, building, planning and zoning, we've had to shuffle around a lot. I think it's time that the village require, just as you suggested about the not doing things in a right-of-way, required adequate engineering reviews of these sites that direct the stormwater away from the neighbors, away from the roads, into the lakes, into the appropriate places. So I would like to see that in our future building of our building and city review process.
Okay, any other comments? Nick?
I just have one comment to go back again to 146 Bellevue relative to what I'm seeing here is the retaining wall. Is this a retaining wall to improve a structural integrity of the property that could be a potential safety concern around this area? Or is this something that's more decorative, or do we just not know?
It is, my understanding is it's a retaining wall due to the grading of that property. It's not meant to improve the integrity of a structure, but more of a grading issue. But Gage, you may want to expound on that.
Yeah, the applicant noted that this retaining wall would prevent erosion in their front yard and alleviate maybe puddling or flooding concerns within their yard. That doesn't really explain the reasoning for it having to extend well into the right-of-way. It starts at, the foundation of their home, and it extends probably about 20 feet out towards the road. Doesn't hit the road, but it's in the right-of-way. So I understand both points. It is certainly decorative in a way, but it does serve a sort of structural engineering purpose to prevent erosion in that front yard. So that's where we were coming from with kind of getting that permit going forward.
Is there a zoning issue in that?
The zoning issue is that you cannot build in that right-of-way. So that's really the only one there.
Big one.
And,
So that goes to the BZA?
well, yeah,
Because we haven't
Possibly.
seen.
No, it's
Well,
administrative.
It's, yeah.
Certainly Darwin.
This is an administrative issue.
Oh, okay.
They want to use, they basically want to use public property and to construct a permanent improvement. It's not a zoning issue per se. So rights-of-way permits are handled through my office. Again, the use of public property, ultimately, if we were going to allow it, it would have to be approved by the village council. Now, certain structures, if they wanted to construct them on public property, would be a zoning issue. But the retaining wall, I don't believe is Gage, is a zoning issue, is it?
no, you're right. I misspoke there. It is certainly administrative, and council has the authority to approve that sort of work.
So these are the kind of designs that require engineering review because they can have a major, as he mentioned, there's the people are talking about cleaning up drainage and stuff. Our process, once we approve these things, doesn't usually provide for the city engineer to be involved. They should be with administration to make sure that if it's on their property, still we need.
Should that go into master plan thinking?
I think it's already in there, it's just not implemented.
It would definitely be an ordinance issue. I mean, if we were to change requirements to require stake surveys or any other types of plans for things that are not already required, it would be ordinance changes. And those may come from recommendations from the Planning Commission, or if it deals with the zoning ordinance. Otherwise, it would be a recommendation that perhaps Councilmember Lamb might want to make directly to the village council. But if we want to impose any additional requirements, it would have to be done by ordinance and approved by council.
I think there's some implementation issues with our existing ordinances that might.
Okay, anybody else on that topic?
I was just going to ask, so that particular house is on Bellevue, and then across the road is where the lake is. So is this retaining wall, I guess, parallel to the road and on the lake side?
It's on the west side of the road.
Perpendicular to the road.
Yeah.
The retaining wall. So the retaining, which one is it?
It's the one with the circle.
This one. So the retaining wall, they're proposing to bring it out to the road and into the roadway in their front yard.
Okay. All right, I'm looking for a motion to receive and file the McKenna Planning and Zoning Monthly Report.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioners' comments regarding planning and zoning. Let's start with Mr. McCleary today.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to add.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. George, I'm going to mess up your name.
Dandelitas.
Dandelitas.
So,
Mr. Dandelitas.
so first of all, I appreciate the opportunity. Gary, I appreciate being selected, call it that. But anyway, and hopefully I won't disappoint you. I do have one comment relative to, and I guess it would be the Mosheri project, because they're on the, they're the 3 projects that are still on the list. So one of the things that I noticed when I read through McKenna's report, they addressed a lot of the ordinances and the whether they met the requirements or not. One of the things that was not addressed was the number of boats. And I know that came up in a lot of the public meetings 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
Totally came up.
And boater safety and overcrowding the lake is a concern of the residents. And so I'm wondering is that something that we can look at? Article 9 in the zoning does address in the mixed use marinas. And so I guess my question is, can we look at that as we move forward and just make sure that what's being proposed matches the ordinance or meets the ordinance, but also meets, Mosheri made some specific commitments on numbers and not increasing the number of boats.
Right.
So I just noticed that that's not in the documentation. So is that something that should be or could be?
We spent a lot of time on that. And I think we have that documentation somewhere. I don't know exactly where it's at, but we did spend a lot of time on it.
I just think there'd be some value in keeping it in front of us as we progress through the
Well,
process.
because we're going to get asked questions and we got to be able to answer them. I agree with you. Mr. Smith?
Thank you.
I just want to welcome George to the Planning Commission. I had the opportunity to get to meet George, actually my first home on Lake Orion, which was off on Bellevue. George was my neighbor.
And we
So-
both have since moved.
Yeah, both have since moved, but I know we're honored to have you as part of the Planning Commission. I know you'll do a great job for the village, and
Thank you.
congratulations. So,
Okay, want to go to Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, I'd also like to welcome George. George, it's great to see you. George is a great guy. His wife's a great person. He has a real interest in helping the community, and I'm glad you're getting a chance. The fact that you apparently read your packet and studied all the information is a really great sign. I'm joking.
Mr. Narsh?
I got a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're welcome, George. So my comment is, because this is like one of our first meetings this year, Darwin is new in this era with the village. He was here 7 years ago. And over the last 2.5 years, we had numerous talks here with the previous administration about the implementation of actually applying the zoning ordinance to what goes on here in the village. And I'm really excited to see that we may have an administrator who's willing to apply the rules that we already have in place, such as the zoning ordinance, the resolutions requiring plans and surveys, and that would be great. That would solve a lot of our problems. It would just be proper administration in a fair and even fashion. So I'm looking forward to see how this pans out, Darwin. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, Mr. Nersch.
I kind of pony in on that. I'm very glad to have Mr. McCleary back. He does have tremendous history, but he has also the ability to say no. And sometimes that is an art form that is lost. And to say no for all the right reasons. And it's difficult in municipal government. All politics is local, right? Tip O'Neill. But I think Mr. McCleary will adequately, evenly, and fairly enforce our planning, zoning, our ordinances, and other things. And I'm really honored to have him back at the helm. And I think as it relates to some of these easement rights of way, it's an administrative approval. And I've just got total confidence that, you know, we have someone who is going to look at the totality of circumstances. And I think we got the right guy in the right place. Just a real brief thing on the boats. I know that's always a conversation and discussion, but I want everybody to kind of look at it this way when you look at the lake. I did a little fun thing. We were having a boat issue during a very packed council meeting. I wanted to ask everybody, if everybody in the audience that lives on the lake, hands go up. And I wanted to walk down that path and see how many people have docks and boats. I'm sure hands would go up. How many people have how many docks and how many boats? And start listing those, hands are going to go down. It's always great to say, I've got mine. And we have a new development that meets all the criteria, meets the zoning, and they get a boat and they get a dock. I caution everybody to say, you know what, I don't want any more boats on the lake. It is. There's keyholing issues that have come up. I don't think you'll see too many keyholing laws anywhere. Those are difficult to pass and enforce. You got to get DNR involved, and DNR is one person for every 10,000 lakes. So just keep in mind when we talk about additional boats or property, if we have lakefront property and you have a dock, they certainly have that right. They're not a marina by having a dock. But at the same time, everybody that puts in a permanent dock is supposed to get a permit from the DNR. And how many unpermitted docks do we have in the lake right now on the many homes that are around the lake? And if we started posing that question, we'd have people running and ducking. I'm just saying. So I'm all about that. I'm all about water safety. We have a really, they've tested our water, they've tested our fish. For as the high volume that we have, our lake is very clean and our fish is very clean. That's like really good news, Lake Orion. I mean, we have clean water, and especially because we're feeding the Clinton River watershed. We want to feed them good, clean water, but at the same time, fair and honest and reasonable debate about boating access. I know we had that in some of these developments. We talked about it, and I listened to what the developer was saying on how they looked at it and how they were going to determine how many boats and who had access. And I thought it was a reasonable approach, a fair approach, because if you applied that to an existing homeowner on the lake and said, oh, wait a minute, if we apply those same standards, you've all got to give up 2.3 of your docks. There'd be some pushback. So anyway, I think we're looking at it the right way as we redevelop lakefront property. And we look at those people who are also going to want to have a boat because they have a lakefront property. I think it's fair. Anyway.
Wednesday's meeting.
And Wednesday, anybody that would come, would like to come Wednesday at 7:30 here in this room. We have a guest speaker. Mr. Robb is the chair of the Birmingham Ethics Committee. City of Birmingham Village Council is looking at an ethics ordinance. It is kind of almost a necessity really for local government. Most governments have them. And so we want to have the right information for council to make that decision, but also understand that that ordinance will affect and impact and govern every board, every commissioner in the village, every employee, both appointed, elected, and unionized employees as well. So it'll be an all-encompassing ordinance. So I'd encourage everybody to come. It's a workshop session, public included. Please come. listen to Mr. Robs. He's an expert in the field. And most importantly, he's got a lot of experience legislating an ordinance. And so please come if you can.
Did you say the time, 7:30?
7:30 here in the room. I don't know how long it's going to be. I was asked that question today. It's a workshop style, so it's, you know, I like those. They're a little less formal. We can talk, we can ask questions. We're not taking any action, but come on and ask questions. Don't sit back. But everybody will be, it will govern all of us, so everybody's got dog in that hunt.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Dunn?
I don't have anything further to add, other than to welcome George to the team.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the commissioners for their hard work and really digging in every single month and having great attendance. So with that, I'll call the meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We got a motion of support. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned.